Welcome everybody to another episode of Fins Nation. I am your host, Louis Sung, and today what we're going to talk about, ladies and gentlemen, I want to talk about the Miami Dolphins running game. The running game that was so maligned when it was before the season. When it was before the season, we were talking about how many different running backs did the Miami Dolphins need to get their hands on. Did they need Saquon Barkley? Did they need Jonathan Taylor? Did they need Dalvin Cook? Did they need Derrick Henry? Did they need Josh Jacobs? The list goes on. Pretty much any free agent running back that had even remotely any kind of a reputation was linked to the Miami Dolphins at some point. And now here we are, 6 weeks later. The Miami Dolphins are sitting at 5-1 for the first time since the year 2002. Just to give you guys some clarity on that, I was 9 years old the last time the Miami Dolphins were this successful. I am currently 30. That is how long it has been since the Miami Dolphins have had this level of success. If you're not excited, you absolutely should be. I'm going to get into all that really quickly, but before that, just want to go ahead and mention that as always, this show is brought to you by PrizePicks.com. PrizePicks.com is the revolutionary fantasy platform where you can now pick up to 6 different players across professional sports leagues, whether that's the NFL, the NBA, the MLB, the NHL. All sorts of sports are available for you to choose from. You can pick them all from the same sport, or you can go ahead and pick one of each. It's up to you to decide. All you have to do is choose whether your chosen player will get more or less than their projected stat. Usually it's a good bet to pick the over on Tua's passing yards and Tyreek Hill's receiving yards, especially if they're playing a bad team like the Carolina Panthers like they did last week. So like I said, that's all you have to do. Just choose whether they're going to go over or under their stat line. And all you have to do to get in on this, use the promo code 5. That is FIVE. You have to spell it out, FIVE. Go to prizepicks.com, deposit up to $100 on your first deposit, and they will match that deposit, making it so that they will give you $100 of their dollars for you to play with, so you can start winning on their dime today. All right, so let's talk about the Miami Dolphins run game real quick. The way that this team is operating right now, it is hard to imagine that after week 1, where the Miami Dolphins just barely beat the Los Angeles Chargers, I had this assumption. I was erroneously believing that because Mike McDaniel opted to, instead of running the ball with Raheem Mostert and whoever else he had available to him at the time, he just went ahead and let Tua throw the ball as many times as he wanted. And mind you, even though they had won the game, I was disappointed. Why was I disappointed? Only because I wasn't disappointed that they won, obviously. I was disappointed that it seemed like Mike McDaniel had gone back on his word. He swore up and down right after the 2022 season was over that he was going to be more committed to the run game. They were going to run the ball much more than they did last season, and he wanted to make sure that there was a lot more balance in this offense. And I thought that after the Chargers game, that was all just a bunch of bull. That he was just going to go ahead and let Tua throw the ball 35, 40 times a game, because why not? You can't stop it. You have Tyreek Hill. You have Jalen Waddle. Every once in a while, you can toss it to one of the backs. That was one improvement that they had worked on, and it seemed like, oh, well, I guess they can do that. I guess that's an extension of the running game, kind of, but they're not really running the football in any traditional sense. So I was looking at Mike McDaniel and saying, okay, Pinocchio, you don't really want to run the football. You just want to keep throwing it, and you just want to let people think you want to run the football more. I was firmly believing that. And the reason why, part of it was not just because of what I'd seen against the Chargers. It was also because he had a sit-down interview with Mike Silver. And he basically said straight up, listen, I had to become the run game coordinator. I had to become the running guru because everybody else on that coaching staff, they were all experts at passing the football. They were all considered offensive geniuses, and I had to make myself stand out in order to make sure that I would get to keep my job and I would be able to be considered somebody worth keeping around. He had to make himself stand out, so he decided to do the one thing that hadn't been looked at. He attached himself to Chris Forster, the offensive line coach at the time, and said, I want you to teach me about running the football. And so he did, and he learned, and he became somebody that everybody looked at and said, this guy's a running game guru. He's going to be able to turn any running back into a superstar. And for the most part, he did. And a lot of offensive players, there are even players who are not running backs, wide receivers, came out and said that he was a genius. Quarterbacks would come out and say that he was a genius. All these people would come out and say that, yes, I was playing at my best when Mike McDaniel was my whatever insert coach here. Then this isn't like when Adam Gase was one of the best coaches that Peyton Manning ever had. Peyton Manning had been in the league over 15 years. Peyton Manning was his own coach. He didn't need coaching. He could run the whole thing by himself. Just like Tom Brady could wherever he went. He could run the offense in New England. He could run the offense when he got to Tampa Bay. He was Tom Brady. Same thing with Peyton Manning. He's Peyton Manning, man. You don't need to coach him. He probably knows more than you do. But now here you have Mike McDaniel. He's not teaching Pro Bowl quarterbacks. He's not working with superstar players. He's having to take guys that are considered pedestrian, like a Raheem Mostert, like a Jeff Wilson, who is in San Francisco, and make the most of what he has. Raheem Mostert is not considered a superstar running back. He is not Christian McCaffrey. He is not Dalvin Cook in his prime. He is not any of these guys. He is just a guy who happens to have a lot of speed, and Mike McDaniel said, I can work with that. And then he took Jeff Wilson, who was the backup, and said, I can work with that. And so now, here we are. He's in Miami. He gets an opportunity to work with Tua Tagovailoa. Tua has not been in the league longer than some people have been alive, like Peyton Manning and Tom Brady had been. So you're looking at Tua. He's been 3-4 years in the league. He's trying to catch up after dealing with all this Brian Flores nonsense, feeling like nobody believes in him, nobody really wants him around, nobody they want to trade for Deshaun Watson, they want to get Tua out of here. He's not the guy. They're firmly convinced he's not the guy for reasons unknown. I still don't understand the logic behind that. What in Brian Flores' mind would lead him to believe that after watching what we have watched, what was Brian Flores looking at? What was he trying to do? What was his goal? I want to know that. What was he trying to pull off exactly, doing what he did with Tua Tagovailoa? I don't get it. I truly do not. Because if you had Brian Flores, and who is supposedly this great defensive coach, and you decided, I don't think that Tua Tagovailoa is the quarterback. If Brian Flores had hired Mike McDaniel to be his offensive coordinator and said, you work with Tua, I don't want anything to do with it. Could you imagine? I'm not saying that Brian Flores would make a better defense. That's not my point here. But it's just, could you imagine the arguments that might take place? Because Mike McDaniel would come into Miami and see everything that Tua Tagovailoa is doing. So he can see the skill set that he is available to him here. And he would go up to Brian Flores and say, listen, dude, I think we got something really special in Tua Tagovailoa. Would Brian Flores relent and let McDaniel try to run the show? I don't know. Would we have missed out on something phenomenal if Brian Flores had remained the head coach? Probably. We probably would have lost out on Tua. Some team out there would have gotten their hands on him and said, you know what? I can work with something special here. So now we're going to get back to the run game here. So now we have Tua Tagovailoa running this offense like he's been in it all his life. And he can throw the ball wherever he wants. He can hit Tyreek Hill over the top before the defense even has a chance to blink. And he will hit him. And he will go into the end zone for a touchdown. And he'll do a backflip. And he will get fined for it. Oh my gosh, NFL. Get over yourselves. For real. You're just going to use that backflip of promotional material later. Don't fine him for that. But that's a different discussion. So Tua can throw the ball wherever he wants. You would think that McDaniel would be like, okay, I'm done being the run game coordinator. I just want to throw the ball like all my other constituents. Nope. I was so wrong. I was so wrong, and I am so happy that I was wrong. Because let's just take a quick review at the Miami Dolphins run game, shall we? So, as of right now, this is what the run stats are for the Miami Dolphins, okay? So, if you want to go into how many rush attempts were made, you can look at Tyreek Hill and say, oh, yards per attempt, 14. He only ran the ball once. That doesn't count. If we're going to talk about yards per attempt, then you have to look at Devon Achane. Devon Achane, 38 attempts, 460 yards, 5 touchdowns rushing, and a whopping 12.1 yards per attempt. Even now, that leads the league. The only one who is close to him is in second place, the New York Jets' Breece Hall. He's at 7.2 yards per carry. But here's the thing. Here's the real kicker here. Devon Achane has 38 carries, and he's currently on IR. He is not going to come back for another 3 weeks, according to reports. So even then, he's still in the top 5 for rushing yards. He is currently 3rd in the NFL for rushing yards. Christian McCaffrey has 553. Zach Moss has 466. Devon Achane, 460 yards rushing. He's going to start falling down the board simply because he's not playing, but that's the only reason why he's going to fall down the board is because he literally is not out there able to make any more plays for another 3 weeks. That's what Devon Achane has managed to do. You can understand why Mike McDaniel was so hyped that he got his hands on him. So, do we need Jonathan Taylor? No, because Devon Achane can get the job done. Perfect. All right, what else? Let's take a look at Raheem Mostert. Raheem Mostert is having the greatest year of his career, and it's not even particularly close. We are only 6 games into the season, and already Raheem Mostert has broken his career high for total touchdowns. He had 10 total touchdowns in 2019 with the San Francisco 49ers. 8 rushing touchdowns, 2 receiving touchdowns. And what is Raheem Mostert at right now? After this game against the Panthers, he is now up to 9 rushing touchdowns and 2 receiving touchdowns. He has 11 touchdowns total for the season. That's already his career high, and we're 6 weeks in. It took Raheem Mostert 16 games to get to that number in San Francisco. Now here in Miami, 6 games in, and he already has 11 touchdowns. Where does he rank as far as the NFL numbers are concerned? Well, let's go down the list here real quick. I'll go ahead and I'll show you guys. As of right now, Raheem Mostert, he is ranked 6th in the NFL for rushing yards. So he's 3 spots below Devon Achane. So he's a top 10 running back, even though he had to be sharing carries with guys like Salvon Ahmed and obviously Devon Achane. So he's still in the top 10. He's above Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry has 425 yards rushing. Raheem Mostert has 429. And he's been sharing carries with Devon Achane and Salvon Ahmed and other guys on this team like Chris Brooks. I'll get to him in just a minute. Raheem Mostert, 75 carries, 429 yards, 9 touchdowns rushing. 4 of those have been for 20 yards or more. 2 of them have been for 40 yards or more. His longest run is a 49-yard run. And he's only fumbled once. I get it. People fumble. It happens. Breece Hall's fumbled twice. Does anybody talk about that? I don't know. Maybe people in New York are talking about that. But just look at the numbers that Raheem Mostert is putting up. And again, that is not even the best performance for a Dolphins running back this year. Chris Brooks, an undrafted rookie, he's also having a terrific season. Now, he's currently dealing with an injury. Hopefully, it is not as bad as it looked. He was writhing on the ground against the Carolina Panthers right near the end of the game. He tried to get up. He could not. Hopefully, it is not as bad as it looked. I am not going to hold my breath on that as of right now. I think that Chris Brooks might be out for a significant amount of time. But even then, it's not something to panic about because Jeff Wilson is coming back. And again, he knows this offense. He knows how to make it work. So once he gets the rust off, the sky's the limit, man. Raheem Mostert can do it. And it really feels like at this point, Mike McDaniel can do whatever he wants and it will work. It really does feel that way. Let's take a look at the rushing yards for the Miami Dolphins, okay? Let's see where they rank as far as everything else. Where are the Miami Dolphins in rushing yards? Currently, they are in first place. 1,091 rushing yards for the Miami Dolphins. In second place is the San Francisco 49ers with 890. How many yards per carry? The Miami Dolphins are in first place, 6.5 yards per carry. Who's in second place? Arizona Cardinals, 5.5. How about rushing touchdowns? Who's in first place? The Miami Dolphins, 15 touchdowns rushing. Who's in second? The 49ers, 12. How many explosive runs? The Dolphins are in first place with 12. Who's in second place? The Cardinals with 10. How about 40-yard rushes? Miami Dolphins have 7 total between all the running backs on the team and all the players, just everybody. 40-yard rushes plus for the Dolphins. Who's in second place? Cardinals again. They're tied with the Jets with 3. It's phenomenal what they are doing. What the Miami Dolphins are doing on offense right now is beyond comprehension. And again, that's just the running game. Want to take a look at some other things? Miami Dolphins are in third right now in completion percentage. Dolphins are at 71%. Chargers and Bills are ahead of them, but okay, whatever. Who's in first place with yards per attempt? The Miami Dolphins, 9.7 yards per attempt. Who's in second place? The 49ers, 8.5. You notice a pattern here? And who's in first place in total passing yards? The Miami Dolphins, 1,943 passing yards. Who's in second place? The Vikings, 1,679. I'm just reading numbers to you at this point. 15 total passing touchdowns. Miami Dolphins are in first place for that. So if you get rid of Mike White's one deep pass against the Denver Broncos, they would be tied for first place in passing touchdowns with the Minnesota Vikings, who have 14. And passer rating for the whole team. And again, most of that is Tua. Remember, Miami Dolphins are 114.2. Who's in second place? Oh, look, it's the San Francisco 49ers again. And all of this happens. It is not because it's just Tua doing amazing things, ladies and gentlemen. It is not just that. The reason the Dolphins are managing to pull all this off is because Mike McDaniel is making good on his promise to be much more balanced. He is running the football like no other team in the NFL. No other team can run the football like the Dolphins can. Even the 49ers, who have Christian McCaffrey, who is arguably the best running back in the NFL, cannot keep up with this scheme. And who are the running backs? Raheem Mostert, who was the guy that McCaffrey technically replaced in San Fran, and Jeff Wilson also, Devon Achane, a rookie. All these guys are out there playing better, performing better than the consensus best running back in football, Christian McCaffrey, because Christian McCaffrey can't do it all. But Raheem Mostert apparently can just step in for Devon Achane. And if something happens to Raheem Mostert, then Devon Achane can just step in. And if something happens to those guys, apparently Savon Ahmed can do some stuff. And apparently Jeff Wilson, we're not sure what he's going to do yet. Maybe he'll be the one bad running back on the team so far. I don't know, because he was the one who was supposed to replace Chase Edmonds, who couldn't really do it in the scheme that we were hoping he would. That's besides the point. Look at these Miami Dolphins. On offense, they are leading almost every statistical category you can think of. Almost. The ones that they're not is probably the 49ers. But even then, you're looking at this team and saying, why are they so successful? Part of it is just because Tua is a fantastic quarterback. You have to give him his props now. You cannot take it away from him. The only question about whether he was going to be good or not was, can he stay healthy? And so far, he's managed to stay healthy. He's getting the ball out quickly. He's staying clean. He's very rarely getting hit. His pocket presence is, bar none, some of the best that I have seen for a Miami Dolphins uniform. It's right up there. It could be right up there with Mr. Dan Marino himself. I believe it's fair to say that some of Tua's success is because of the weapons that he has. Tyreek Hill, he is so dangerous. He can just run down the field. Tua literally tells Tyreek, hey, go deep. And Tyreek goes deep, and they hit him for touchdowns. They've done that twice now. They've done that twice. In 2 consecutive weeks, they've done that. Against the New York Giants, there was the wrong play call. Tua said, okay, you're going to do this instead. They did it, and it worked. Boom, touchdown. This time against the Panthers, Tua was like, hey, Tyreek, go deep. And he did, and it was a touchdown. Beautiful, perfect shot right into the end zone. You can't make this stuff up. They're basically doing whatever they feel like. All they have to do is execute, and nothing can stop this offense. And part of it is because now that there is a legitimate run game, and it's not just a legit run game, it's not a top 10 run game, it's not a top 5 run game, it is literally the best run game in the NFL through 6 weeks. How does a defense try to stop that? If you try to shut down Tua, the Dolphins will run all over you. If you try to stack the box and stop the Dolphins from running, you're going to let Tua find Tyreek deep down the field 3 times a game? Are you out of your mind? Somehow the Buffalo Bills just bullied the Dolphins into a loss. I think that at this point it's just a matchup thing. It's a mojo thing. They're just going to have to get that monkey off their back one way or another eventually on their own time. But every other team, watch out. Because you have no way of beating this Dolphins offense unless you can put up a lot of points and force them to throw the ball and become one-dimensional. Because even if you are within, the Panthers were up 14-0 after the first quarter was over, and then the Dolphins proceeded to score 35 points unanswered. The Panthers had no answers, none. They could not stop them. After that, they made an adjustment, and it was like, okay, watch this, and the Dolphins put up 42 points. The backups scored on the Panthers starting defense. Savon Ahmed ran in for a touchdown with backups as his blockers. It was done. The game was over, and they still couldn't stop scoring. They could not stop scoring. The only thing they could have done was kneel the ball and say, okay, we surrender. Here, you can have the ball back a couple more times. Which nobody is dumb enough to do that until you get to victory formation. These Dolphins are something else. And give credit to Mike McDaniel. He stayed true to his word. The Miami Dolphins are not just a passing football team. They are a running football team. They are an everything football team. And there's help on the way on defense. I didn't even talk about defense. Jalen Ramsey's going to be coming back sooner rather than later. Nick Needham is working his way back. There are other players that are going to be coming back. This defense might just take another step up very, very soon. Vic Fangio is still considered one of the best defensive coordinators of his time. So hopefully he will figure it out once Jalen Ramsey and Nick Needham come back. He keeps saying how he needs to have players he can trust. Well, I would assume he trusts Jalen Ramsey. I would assume he trusts Nick Needham. He's not trusting Cam Smith. I don't know what that's about, but that's a different discussion. That's something I disagree with him on. But watch out. This Dolphins defense is about to get a lot of reinforcements, and already they are 5-1. All these other teams, the word is out. You better be on your A game, because if you make a mistake, the Dolphins will put up 40 on you. That's going to be it for this show. Thank you all so much for listening. Once again, if you have not already done so, make sure you go to prizepicks.com, use the promo code 5, that's F-I-V-E, and they will match up to $100 on your initial deposit when you sign up. That's going to be it for me. I will see you all Wednesday for another episode of Fins Nation, and make sure you tuned in on Tuesday night for Pulse of Fins Nation and join us live.